The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the host/guest and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any of BXR entities and those they represent.
Welcome to another week of Living a Rich Life. I am your host, Rich James. Here on Living a Rich Life talk show, we inform, inspire, and encourage each other to live the principles of Living a Rich Life Network. Those principles are good health, strong relationships, financial freedom, goals and achievement, extraordinary experiences, and philanthropy. So it's been a couple of weeks. We've been reorganizing, restructuring, a lot of good things happening on Living a Rich Life. Today's our guests are phenomenal, and they're actually running a few minutes late, but we wanted to go ahead and get started and share with you some things that's happening in the world, up and coming, that Living a Rich Life will be a part of. So we do have the Ram and Bull event in which your guy, Rich James, will be hosting the red carpet experience. So be sure to come out Saturday. That's going to be April 16th, right? I think April 16th at 8 o'clock. And that's going to be at Doubletree Hilton. So that's going to be an exciting event. Make sure you come to that. And then we also have Art Taste 2022, which is going to be a part of, again, Living a Rich Life. It's going to be hosting that event and giving you that red carpet experience. It's all about food, fashion, and the culinary experience, as they say. So one of the good things I like, I'm good to be back. I know Monty, you out there? Monty is my producer extraordinaire.
Yeah.
He makes a lot of things happening. So how's it going, Monty? Did you miss me?
Sure.
Oh, I love it. See, so we always go through this little back and forth banter. Monty keeps me on my toes. He's been doing a lot of good stuff. As I said, we were reorganizing. So we have our guests. They're waiting to be let in. So we want y'all to take some time, by all means, join the chat. Throw some questions at them, but we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have an interview, and we're gonna get this started. So I think, Monty, give me the thumbs up when we're ready to get this thing going here, because I believe they're gonna log in. So again, this is beexposedradio.com, and I am your host, Rich James. So let's see here. I think we got a few folks. Yes.
Loving that shirt. Loving that shirt.
I love it. My guests always come in with a good energy. I can feel it through the screen. I can feel it through the screen. So folks that are just tuning in, our guests have arrived. Once again, I am your host, Rich James. This is Living a Rich Life talk show here on Be Exposed Radio. So what we're gonna do is, we all have a story to tell. And today, my guests are no different. So with that being said, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So today's guest, first and foremost, he is a combat veteran, best-selling author, small business owner, Rhodes Scholar, and former CEO of one of the nation's largest anti-poverty organization. And you can't have one without the other, who to me is the tip of the spear. Right? And joining him, she is no stranger to politics, former top aide to a lieutenant governor, the director of business development for NFTE, loving and supportive wife, hero to her children, and her children say she is very kind and respectful and has a lot of honor. That's big. Your kids love you like that. That's what they're supposed to do. Please welcome this amazing power couple, Dawn and Wess Moore.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
It is
Honor
always
to be
good,
with you.
it is always good to see you because I got to say, and one of my folks said, "Hey, oh, you're having Wes and Dawn on the show." They said that one, y'all are always so approachable, always so approachable, and I think that's very important. That's very important. So thank you for joining us on the show today. We know you're born in Tacoma Park, Maryland, and had some upbringing in the Bronx, New York, which I'm a native New Yorker myself. So tell us how you bridge those words together within your life's work.
Yeah, man. I feel like everybody who has any exposure to New York has a little bit of extra swagger. Because my wife actually she was born and raised in Queens, New York.
In Queens.
And yeah, she's a queen. She's a Queens girl, but then came down to Prince George's County in Maryland in college and stayed. And you know, my journey was a bit flipped, where I was born down in Tacoma Park in Maryland. But tragedy hit our family early, where when I was just around 4 years old, I was almost 4 years old when my father died in front of me. And my mother struggled with that and what that reality was. And one day she called up her parents, my grandparents, who were living up in the Bronx. And my grandfather was a minister in the Bronx. In fact, he was the first Black minister in the history of the Dutch Reformed Church. Okay. And my grandmother was a school teacher in the Bronx for 27 years. And I always say their house was barely big enough for them, but it was made out of elastic walls, because every time someone called up and said they needed help, or they needed refuge, or they needed a place to stay, the walls just got a little bit bigger. And when my mother called and said that she needed help, their walls got a little bit bigger. And that's actually what brought us from Maryland up to New York when I was only about 5-6 years old. And then I stayed up there and stayed with my grandparents for a while before eventually moving back down to Maryland, when I was about 14, 15 years old. So that was kind of that journey for me, kind of what brought me from Maryland to New York, and then eventually back down to Maryland.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. We're off to a good start. I got to tell you, I've been pumped for this for weeks. So can you, and Dawn, we definitely got some things directly for you, because, Queen, we got to make sure we get you involved in this too. So Westo, can you give us some insight into what inspired you to break through those barriers of being a statistic at a very young age? And please, explain to our audience briefly some of those challenges that you faced early on.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting because, whenever we talk about adverse childhood experiences, people call them ACEs, right? The reason they call them ACEs and not ACE is because they're never singular, right? There is no singular adverse childhood experience, because they compound upon each other. And we see that with children all over. And we saw that with us in my life, where, literally I found myself, especially when we moved up to New York. That was also a place where I found myself getting very lost. Where I was now going to schools where literally, I was picking and choosing which days were worthwhile to go to schools and which ones weren't. I found myself intentionally hurting people that loved me, so I could impress people that could care less about me. And going through this process of where you're just dealing with so much confusion and anger and hurt, and the way you're processing it is by showing out, right? The way you're dealing with it, and especially as a child, as an adolescent. And we see this thing with so many children who are just going through this and say that's a bad kid, without actually understanding like everything that child is trying to process in that moment, and the cage that they find themselves in, right? And so you see how this behavior shows itself out, to the point that literally, I felt handcuffs on my wrists when I was 11 years old. I was 11.
Right.
And so, my mother kept on, giving me all these different threats, and she was going to do this, she's going to send me here. And then finally, when I was 13 years old, she actually made good on her promise, and she ended up sending me to military school. Literally, when I was 13 years old, I got sent away to military school that she'd been threatening me to send me away for since I was 8. But finally, when I was 13, she made good on the promise and sent me away. And it was one of these things where I think about it in context, where people often say, well, isn't it a good thing that you got sent away? Isn't it a good thing that you got picked up and moved around? And my honest answer is, what happened to me wasn't the fact that I was physically transported. Me getting picked up and moved from one state to another state, this area to that area, that didn't change my way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was I really did. I was blessed and I was thankful that I found myself surrounded by people who just helped me to imagine something bigger, who helped me to understand that the world was bigger than what was just directly in front of me.
Right.
And so in essence, what they did was they taught me what it meant to be free. They gave me a sense of freedom. And so I think about the fact that, I remember when I was announced as a Rhodes Scholar when I was 21 years old, and I was a senior in college, and I remember thinking back on it, where it was like, here I am, and in my hometown paper, the Baltimore Sun's writing about me getting this Rhodes Scholarship. But I thought about it, and I was like, a decade ago, I had handcuffs on my wrists, right? A decade ago, I'm picking and choosing which days I'm going to school and which ones I'm not. And now a decade later, I'm one of 32 American students who are heading off to Oxford on a Rhodes Scholarship, the first African-American Rhodes Scholar in the history of Johns Hopkins University.
That's what's up.
Early, I had handcuffs on. And so you think about how that transition happens, but it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because we have people who are willing to intervene and make space for me to be able to grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So congratulations are in order. You are currently running for the seat of governor in Maryland. Before we even get into that, so Dawn, I'm going to say you had to be the first person that Wess talked to when he was considering to run for governor. So what was your initial reaction, and were you surprised?
Well, I mean, certainly, when you talk to your spouse about these things, it's a process, right? And having been in that world for a while, I certainly had to pause for a second and to think to myself, are you sure this is something that you want to do? My husband has spent his whole life in service. And so it wasn't surprising to me that he would want to serve at one of the highest levels in the way that, he could. He's always been very concerned about impact. And those are the things that drive him. But as his wife, as, the mother to our children, I had to think about the family as well. But ultimately, the one thing I would say that Wess and I are great at is supporting one another. And so you know who you married, and his happiness is very important to me. And so after many conversations, I always say, I was like a little puppy who's like dragging his butt on the ground and you're pulling and pulling, but eventually the puppy gets up and is very happy and excited. And so once we went through all the things we needed to go through as a couple, I was 1,000% in, and I'm 1,000% in, because, my husband is, I love him so much. I truly admire my husband, and leaders lead, and you have to let them do what they do.
Yes, I love it. Well said. Well said. Well said. So we're gonna stick with that theme now, though, right? Because serving as a chief of staff for former Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown, how has your experience influenced your role in the campaign?
Yeah, well, I thank God for that experience, to be honest with you, because what it allowed me to do, because Wess is a first-time candidate, right? And so it allowed me to prepare our family, to talk through, kinds of the things that we needed to be able to figure out as a family, and how things would, affect us, if you will. I think also, honestly, I know him the best. So I think the team appreciates being able to lean on me for certain things about his personality and the way things, could and should be done. So I think they appreciate that. But, as I said, I am Wess's wife, and that is my role. And, I thank God that I wasn't, sort of thrusted into this without any knowledge, but we have an amazing team. I mean, we really do. And so I provide support where it's needed, but most importantly, we're out there on the campaign trail, allowing people to get the opportunity to know us to find out about their issues. And I just love supporting my husband in this process. And it's fun because, we've always watched each other work, but now we get to work together. So that's really special.
That is definitely a beautiful thing. I have an opportunity of working a lot of different couples in business, and shouts out to Zeke, who again worked with him and Penelope. That's always a good thing. D Chase and his wife. So there's a lot of different folks, and I think
awesome people. Awesome people.
Awesome.
Exactly. So Wes, what made you choose to run for governor, and tell us some key points your campaign is focused on currently?
Yeah, honestly, I think the biggest things that continue to push me to enter into the spaces, these are issues that I've been working on for my entire adult life, right, for my entire career. And you realize that if we aren't actually attacking the systems, the why these issues exist, then you will find yourself cleaning up the debris that comes from broken systems. And I remember, one of the initiatives that I had a chance to work on, I led one of the largest poverty fighting organizations in this country for almost the past 5 years. And, in just in my time as CEO, we allocated north of $650 million towards housing and transportation and education, working to create, laws and structural changes on the child tax credit and fair appraisal value for historically redlined neighborhoods and all this stuff. But one of the initiatives we worked on was an initiative called 90 to 0 that was focused on addressing the racial wealth gap. And where we were working across sectors, working with big business and banks and HBCUs and all this kind of stuff, to be able to address the fact that even in the state of Maryland, we have an 8-to-1 racial wealth gap. And that's not because one group is working 8 times harder, right? There are systems in place that allow that to exist and compound and grow. And so I remember talking to one of my colleagues, and I was saying to them, I said, I think I'm gonna step down because I think I'm gonna go run for governor of my home state. And I was explaining to them, I say, one of the issues I want to work on is actually addressing the racial wealth gap here in the state of Maryland. Is one example of one of the things that we want to be able to get done. And they said to me, they're like, but you're already doing it. Like, you've already built a huge platform that's working on this issue. Why would you leave to go run for governor? And my answer back to them was, why do you think this issue exists in the first place? There are policies. There are policies that continue to allow these type of challenges to exist. And so when we're thinking about the priorities, when we think about the idea that I want to create a system, I want to create pathways for work, wages, and wealth for all Maryland families. When we think about in this next decade, we have a unique opportunity to be able to make our state more competitive while also making it more equitable. That we have a unique opportunity to close the racial wealth gap. We have a unique opportunity to address issues like climate change and the fact that the state has spent over $10 billion over the past decade on the fact that we have no levels of resiliency to be able to deal with the issues of climate change. I'm like, if you want to get in the game and actually address the systems that continue to allow these ruptures to exist and far too often are leaving people to fend for themselves, then we've got to make sure we're in that conversation. And it's not just that we're in the conversation, we need to make sure that we have the opportunity to lead the conversation. And that's why I decided to get in this race.
Absolutely. Makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. Now, one of the things you threw out their numbers, and we know sometimes campaigns, requires some funding and things of that nature. And my team put up a question surrounding in 2019 how, you were leading the race in fundraising to the tune of about 4.8 million as of January. We're now a couple of months in. So how do you intend for you and your team to kind of keep that momentum of the support, especially with those top individual donors like veterans and firefighters and law firms? I mean, you're rolling.
Yeah, we really are. And I'm telling you, and we are so excited just about the level of momentum that we continue to see. I mean, because, if you're watching the fact that our campaign has received more endorsements from members of the Maryland General Assembly, from our delegates in the state senators, than any campaign in this field. That we received the endorsement of the teachers, 76,000 strong in the state of Maryland, are supporting our campaign. that we received endorsements of some of the top elected leaders in the state, people like Angela Alsobrooks, the county executive of Prince George's County, which is the largest Democratic bloc of voters and citizens that you have in the state of Maryland. I mean, the momentum that we have is real, and that does include our fundraising. We've done very, very well, but what we're really excited about is when you disaggregate the data and you break it down. 73% of our donations are $100 or less. 73%, which means we are building the best grassroots campaign of anybody in this field. And so when people are looking at the coalition that we're building, I think part of the thing that is generating so much excitement about our campaign is the most broad, the most diverse, and the most inclusive in this entire field. We've got endorsements for everyone from the mayor of District Heights to the mayor of Hagerstown, right? Literally from Prince George's County to Western Maryland, urban, rural, suburban, former governors. The momentum that's being driven right now is so organic and it's so real. And there's something really interesting and unique happening here in the state of Maryland. Yeah. And I think the thing that we're seeing, and the one thing we love about our campaign, is that what we're doing is we're filling into a void that was already there. People are anxious and they're tired of the back and forth. They're tired of the vitriol. They're tired of people who are just looking for promotions. Right. They're tired of people who just want to sit there and point blame at someone else as to why this thing isn't working. And they're tired of people who are claiming to have the unique ability to solve a problem that their fingerprints are all over. And so I think having this chance to really build a cohesive unit, having a chance to build a beautiful mosaic that actually matches the beauty of the diversity of our state, right? Yeah, that's something I think people are really excited about.
Yeah, key words there, I think, was I heard was organic and diversity. That's key to me. That's always key. I like open conversations, let it flow, and pretty organic. So I want to shift gears just a little bit, right? Because again, we're all about having a good time and enjoying. So we mentioned your kids earlier, and one thing I know is with your kids, they identified Stevie Wonder as okay. I don't know how you do that, but they identify Stevie Wonder as Snoop Dogg at the State Fair. So
you got to see the picture.
You do have to.
You got to see the picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm telling you, we cracked up because at State Fair they have these pictures of musicians all over the walls, right? and it's amazing because you're going to go around and some are more noticeable than others. And so we're asking the kids, saying like, "Who do you think this is? Who do you think this is? Who do you think this is?" And they got to this picture, and hope we get a chance to pull it up to show everybody. They got to this picture of Stevie Wonder, and our 8-year-old son said, "Is that Snoop Dogg?"
I think what's even funnier about this is because obviously off the heels of the Super Bowl, it's not like our 8-year-old is listening to Snoop either, but he saw that, right? And okay. I think that what's even funnier is because Wes is really like, he's into his music, right? And everybody from Kurt Cobain to Madonna to Stevie to Biggie, they were on that wall, and Wes can name every person on that wall. And funny enough, the owner said to Wes, you're one of the only people, you're the only one who is able to do that, right? So this restaurant's in Catonsville. But anyway, so it was just a great moment. It was a great parental moment, right? And we obviously posted it, and I think people appreciated that one.
Nice. So we're going to stick with this kind of theme, right? One of the things there's two things I always ask my guests, and we're way off before I ask the final one. But I want to know, Dawn, what would you say is what is his superpower?
He's got a lot of superpowers. His superpower. I love that question. His superpower is his ability to connect with people's pain in an authentic and profound way. And that is not something that you can teach. That comes from lived experiences, but it also comes from loving people and understanding where they are and having empathy for their walk in life.
Okay.
And I'll never forget this. When my grandfather met Wess, when we started dating, my grandfather was an enlisted man, and Wess is an officer, as you know. And so my grandfather loved him. And the first day he met him, after Wess left, my mother said, "Well, what do you think?" And my grandfather said, "You know, he's an officer and I'm an enlisted man." And he listened to me. And he said, and that's a big deal for officers because that's not necessarily what they are trained to do or have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's powerful because Wess is one of the best listeners you'll ever meet in your life. And many people who know them who know him will say that. And it matters because he listens and then he tries to put forth solutions if it's in his power. So that's his superpower, his ability to connect, to empathize, to listen, and then to try to do something about it.
Okay, I can see I can see he looking. You wasn't expecting that one, right? yeah. So I'm gonna switch it around. So Wess, tell us, what's Dawn's superpower?
I tell you, the beautiful. I mean, I love everything about this woman right here. You will never find anyone who is not just more thoughtful, but who's more loyal. I mean, if Dawn has got you, she's got you. And I tell you what, I mean, you know, one of the things that I was really amazed by, actually, when we first met, was she has this clique of girlfriends, and you know, and literally like they roll in packs. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember when I mean, there was a whole time when Dawn, I was overseas studying, and I was trying to get Dawn to come over, you know, come see me and come hang out. And her friends like, "When are we going?" I'm like, "We." I'm like, I invited her, but they roll deep. But there's a beauty about the fact that these are all, you know, remarkable and literally have all become my sisters. But it says something.
Absolutely.
When you watch how united this crew is, how much they root for each other, how much they cheer for each other, how much they have each other's back. And I remember when I first saw that with Dawn, because it actually reminds me of a crew that my mom has, where she has like a very tight crew of girlfriends, whatever like that. And it was something that I found just this most beautiful trait that she just embodies, and she exudes better than anybody I know, where again, not only just amazingly thoughtful and remarkable, but loyal. And she will, I mean, she's going to the wall for you if she's down for you. And and that means everything to me.
No doubt. I love it. All right, so we shifted it into the next gear now. We got shifted into the next gear. One of the things, again, my team, they do, I got a good team, and I'm sure you have a great team over there too. I can tell that by just some of the different ads and just how you move. I really appreciate how the Moors move. And I'll share a little story later, because I keep it 100, as they say. So you're running for governor because you believe that no matter where you start in life, you deserve an equal opportunity to succeed. Right. So can you talk to our audience about how you plan to create equal opportunity in your position?
Absolutely. Well, first we're gonna make sure that we actually have an administration that's actually reflective of the beauty of our state and the diversity of our state. We are going to make sure that we're working in unison, but also celebrating everything that is the state of Maryland. And you're going to see that from our cabinet. You're going to see that from our agency heads. We are going to have a state, and we're going to have a leadership team that actually looks like the state. That's going to move like the state. That's going to fight and advocate for the people of our state. And the thing that I also believe in deeply is this idea that expectations matter. I wrote a book called The Other Wess More, and actually probably about 11 years ago now. But I remember a story where I was having a conversation with the other Wess More, who I wrote about, the lives of these two kids. and what ends up happening that causes the split. And he was just recently at that time, he was recently incarcerated. Now he's in, year 21 of a life sentence. But I remember having a conversation with him, and I asked him, do you think that we're products of our environments? And he looked back at me and he said, actually, I think we're products of our expectations. And as soon as he said that, I thought to myself, he's absolutely right, that we weren't products of our environments. We were products of our expectations. And someone once said to me, it's a real shame that you lived up to your expectations and Wes didn't. And I said, actually, the real shame is we both did. Because the expectations that people have of themselves don't come from nowhere. The expectations that people have from themselves come from the expectations that other people have of them. And they internalize them and they make them their own. And so the thing that I want for everybody in this state, I want people to know that the expectations that we have for every child who's coming up in our state are high. And we need to invest that way. That the expectations that we have for every student are high, and we will invest that way. The expectations that we have for every working parent is high, and we will invest that way. Then that's how we look at everything from the air people are breathing, to the water they are drinking, to the transportation assets they have or don't have, to the way they are policed, to the homes that they are living in, to the schools they are attending, to the way we're asking them to retire. That our job is to make sure that we are creating pathways to the fullest of human growth and human supports, and that we become products of our expectations. We now just need to make sure that we have governmental budgets that actually reflect those values.
That's it. That's what's up. I got to tell you this. I'm enjoying this tremendously. It's not even enough time.
Us too.
Right? There's never enough time, but we got some commercials, and I know you got some other things happening. So I appreciate y'all coming on and having a conversation. But I will say I am looking forward to interviewing you two once again when we get to the next level. That's what I'm saying. So before I let you go, what I usually do is I have a little closing remarks that I like for you to stick around right quick. But I do thank you, and this is kind of goes in tune with the whole kind of backstory of living a rich life. So this is Living a Rich Life closing remarks. I want to thank those for tuning in and watching. I want to thank Wes and Dawn for sharing their story. So life comes at you in so many ways, and sometimes we just have to remember to keep pushing forward and get creative. With that being said, some days you have to create your own sunshine. Simple as that. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Wes, for sharing your story. If you have an inspiring story and you care to tell it, please reach out to us, livingarich.life.net. Until next week, I want you to continue to be inspired to live a rich life. This is your guy, Rich James, saying good night. Thank you for tuning in to BeExposedRadio.com. Let's keep that momentum going.
Peace, Rich. Thank you so much. And thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.